Okay, let's talk some Green Bay Packers. What did they do now? I kind of made a video right after they got eliminated of a bit of a where do we go from here type of video. But as I'm kind of doing this series where I'm really getting a bunch of teams and seeing where their cap situation is at, seeing who their free agents are, what their team needs are and stuff, figured I had to do the Green Bay Packers and really break this down. Obviously, the key thing is what are we going to do with Aaron Rodgers? What are we going to do with Davante Adams? That's a clear thing that we have at play here. But let's just get into first the free agency and all of that stuff. So here we go. This isn't all of them, but these are the list of the key free agents for the Green Bay Packers who they, have to pay attention to. And the number you see next to the free agents, that's about how many millions of dollars either I'm projecting that they'll get in free agency or that Sports Track, they have kind of their market value thing. So like for Davante Adams is $26 million. That's where they value him at. So if they had a value, I just use theirs. But if they didn't, then I kind of guessed on my own. Also, for some of these guys, I just put $2 million down kind of for these depth guys sort of towards the bottom. So that's where those guys are there. But anyways, so at the top, you have Davante Adams, who, that's going to be the key one, right? He's the, maybe the best receiver in football. I think you could certainly make that argument. I might make that argument. So the fact that he is a free agent, you want to make sure you keep him. You could franchise tag him. That might actually save you about $10 million. As opposed to signing him to a big deal. Although the flip side is, if you sign him to a big deal, you can make his cap hit be very low for this year. If you franchise tag him, you're stuck, against the cap, just paying whatever you end up, paying for. So that's kind of the one interesting thing there, because they are, you see the top right of this, $50 million over the cap currently. Robert Tonyan, Devontae Campbell, and Rasul Douglas, all key players. Tonyan was injured last year, but Campbell and Douglas kind of came out of nowhere to have good seasons. So I'm assuming those are guys that Green Bay wants back. But for those guys, they're probably going to sit here and say, listen, we might not be getting much money. We might just chase the bag, see how much we can get. Because, for Devontae Campbell, this might be his one opportunity at a big payday. So I'm assuming he's not going to take a pay cut. Towards the bottom section, that next paragraph of players, I was surprised that they had Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Allen Lazard so high in terms of the money that they would get. But granted, decent receivers do tend to get at least decent money. So it's not crazy to think that they could get somewhere around that range, I don't think. Also, again, guys like Kevin King, Chandon Sullivan, their punter, who was good for them. Listen, there was a lot of special teams problems. I don't think he was the reason for it. Also, Lucas Patrick and Dennis Kelly, some offensive linemen depth, losing those guys as well would be not ideal. So if you don't, again, if you lose these guys, like I'm sure some Packers fans won't mind seeing Kevin King go. I get it. But if you lose him, you have to replace him. You can't just lose him and then go on. You have to have a player to fill all these roles. So even if you don't end up re-signing these guys, you might have to use that money to re-sign somebody else. So if they wanted to re-sign everybody on this list with the dollar figure that we have for them, that would mean that they need $79 million, and they're already $50 million over the cap, so they would need to clear $129 million if they wanted to re-sign everybody. Seems like that's probably not going to happen. So now let's go over to some players that I have, players they could cut. Not saying this means that I think they should, but just these are, if I'm the GM, these are options that I put on the table before I make my decisions. So also worth mentioning for Aaron Rodgers, yes, you could trade him or cut him. If you did it before June 1st, you would save $20 million. And if you did it after June 1st, you'd save $27 million. So that would go some way if that's a decision they decide to make, although that wouldn't solve all of their issues, obviously. Here's some other options. Someone like Preston Smith, who would still have some dead cap, but you could save $12 million. Someone like Randall Cobb, he might be gone, although I know Rodgers apparently wants him. And then some other guys, Dean Lowry, Mason Crosby, and Mercedes Lewis. You'd save a little bit if you got rid of either of those guys. So those are just some options. That's something that's on the table that you could save some money that way. But again, you would have to replace these guys too if you did get rid of them. Like, they might not have huge roles, but like Mercedes Lewis does get on the field at times. Like, he does have a role on the team. So if you lose him, like, you have to replace him. If you lose Mason Crosby, who wasn't great this year, you still do need a kicker, so you have to go out and find one then. Finally, this last chart, this is where they ranked in terms of PFF grades with each position last year. Some people are going to say, how the hell was passing 11th with Aaron Rodgers? Worth mentioning, part of this was because Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love played 2 games. So Aaron Rodgers, I believe, was like 4th overall in terms of PFF grades. So, but, the other games kind of pushed it down a lot. So just that's why that's there. We all know Aaron Rodgers is elite. There's no denying that. He just won back-to-back MVPs. The offensive line was solid last year, according to them, not great. Receiving core and running game was really good, though. So that's what you have. But again, how much of that receiving core is because of Davante Adams? You lose Davante, where does that put you? Where are you now on the field? I just don't know. The defense also very good. Run defense maybe was the weakness, so to speak, but it was still above average. And then pass rush and coverage was awesome for Green Bay. They were a really complete team, and that's kind of where the interesting situation comes from them. So what do you do if you're the Green Bay Packers? I mean, it's kind of one of those things where, listen, okay, are you going to be $130 million over the cap? Can you make that work in terms of actual money? That's going to be tough, again, because they don't have an owner, so I don't know exactly who can sign off on how much they're allowed to spend. I don't know how that works. Typically, what you would do is you would just go to your owner and say, hey, give us as much money as possible for the next couple of years, and then we'll scale it back. Let's make this work. Doesn't really work that way with the Green Bay Packers, so that's an interesting aspect. But, I mean, listen, I've talked about the salary cap is kind of a myth because every team typically spends over the salary cap. Last year, 30 teams spent over the salary cap, some as much as $60 million over the salary cap. The most any team has ever spent over the salary cap is $74 million. So, listen, you could do it. You could sign Davante Adams, and you could maybe let some of these lesser pieces walk and try to fill that out through the draft and all that stuff. It's not out of the question. It's not crazy to think. You're going to lose some pieces, probably, because we've never seen a team go over $100 million over the cap during the season. We've seen teams, for next year, being over $100 million, but, not during that 1 year. In terms of actual cash, no one spent that much. So you could lose some pieces. Do you let Rasul Douglas walk and hope you can find another Rasul Douglas? Do you let Devondre Campbell walk and hope you can find another one? Getting those key pieces really went such a long way this year, and now losing them, that's going to hurt. And maybe they say, we don't want Lazard and Marquez Valdes-Scantling, but then you have to replace them. And you probably have to get upgrades, I would think, because there were times when I know the receiving grades were as a whole good, but when you lost, when Adams was getting taken out of the game, I feel like so much of it was Davante Adams. And quite frankly, I think you have to re-sign Davante Adams. I just don't think you can let that guy walk. I just don't think that's something you can do. If you have to franchise tag him, franchise tag him. I don't know if he'll play on the franchise tag. He could just say, if you tag me, I'm walking. He said he wants $35 million a year. I think he'll probably get more than $27 million if he does get a long deal. I think he'll probably get more than Hopkins. I think that, teams are going to say, oh, we'll give you 26, and he says, I want to be the highest paid player at wide receiver position. I think someone will eventually do it. So I think he's going to get a big payday, and I think it would be the right decision. I think the Green Bay Packers have a good chance of winning a Super Bowl now. What I don't think they should do, what I don't think they should try and do, is get rid of Aaron Rodgers, let Davante Adams walk, and rebuild. I think that would be silly. You have such a good team. You were so close to winning a Super Bowl this past year. Even with, you can say, Aaron Rodgers choked. Yeah, he did. Aaron Rodgers isn't a perennial playoff choker. That's just not true. And maybe I should make a video talking about that. But Aaron Rodgers has had plenty of great postseason performances. He's had plenty of great final drives in the postseason over the course of his career. He did choke this year. The whole team kind of imploded except for their defense and that. And then there was a block punt. Even if that block punt doesn't happen, the Packers might be Super Bowl champions right here. They were that close this year. So I think just blowing it up, in my opinion, would be really stupid. I think that it would be one of the dumbest things you could do. Do whatever you can. Hey, Aaron Rodgers, Joe Rogan's awesome, right? Whatever you got to do to keep him in the building, get him in the building. Get Davante Adams in the building. I think get Devondre Campbell in the building. Just try to keep all those the Adams, Tunyon, Campbell, and Douglas. I think I try and keep. I think you can let the other guys walk. Maybe try to get cheaper options through the draft. And then just, push the can down the road with the cap space. But we'll see what they do. It's interesting stuff. So, yeah, that's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And, of course, as always, thanks for watching.